some big matchups have been announced for some UFC Fight Night cards. These were announced while I was in New York City. So let's talk about them now, better late than never. Starting off with the UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia main event, we have got the return of Israel Adesanya versus Imavov. Now look, a lot of people originally weren't really happy with this matchup. I did see complaints. A lot of people wanted to see Adesanya versus Caio Borralho. Obviously, Caio Borralho's coming off a big win over Jared Cannonier. He's picking up a lot of traction. Obviously, his gym is picking up a lot of traction with even the likes of Carlos Prates, Gene Silva in there. The Fight Nerds, they're kind of building popularity rapidly in the UFC. But this is the reason why. So Israel Adesanya right now is currently ranked number 2 in the UFC's middleweight division, and Imavov is currently ranked number 5. If Israel Adesanya is able to beat Imavov, a guy who's ranked inside the top 5 of the UFC's middleweight division, a guy who's on a 3-fight win streak, I believe. I think his streak currently is Roman Dolidze, Jared Cannonier, which was an early stoppage, if we're being honest, and Brendan Allen at the last UFC Fight Night Paris. So he is picking up some big ranked opponent wins on his resume. That is Imavov. If Israel Adesanya beats him, he's right back in there for a title fight, in my opinion. Now, whether you agree with that or not, Israel Adesanya is one of the biggest stars the sport has ever seen. He's currently ranked number 2. Also, the legacy that the guy's built in the middleweight division. Adesanya is at that level now where one win, he's back in for a title shot. That's just a fact. I feel like if Israel Adesanya is able to beat Imavov here, he will be fighting for the middleweight title after Khamzat Chimaev gets his title shot. And you know what? I think Adesanya is going to get the job done here. Yes, Imavov can offer him some problems. Imavov can mix it up. He can grapple offensively. We have seen that in his last couple matchups. But Adesanya is going to be too much for him on the feet, in my opinion. I feel like this will be predominantly a kickboxing matchup, and Adesanya just is the better kickboxer. Let's just not lie about it. I feel like Adesanya is kind of on the underrated side at the minute. I feel like a lot of people are just discrediting how good this guy is. He is one of the best strikers we've ever seen in the UFC, and a lot of people seem to just discredit the legacy that the guy has. I mean, right now Adesanya is arguably a top 10 UFC fighter of all time. In my opinion, anyway. I feel like there's definitely an argument to be had that he is top 10 all time. Now, like I said, Imavov can mix it up. He can grapple. But it's not as if Adesanya's takedown defense is shit. Again, this is another underrated thing in Adesanya's game. His takedown defense, the guy is hard to take down and hold down. His takedown defense against the cage is next to none. Obviously, we've seen what happened in his last matchup against DDP. He got submitted. But Adesanya, technically, if you watch him trying to get back up to his feet, he was taken down. He then built back to a base. But DDP obviously had worked on that, because as soon as Adesanya started to build to his base, which is correct in what he was doing, he wasn't doing anything wrong or anything silly or low level. He was doing what he's meant to do against the cage, try and build up to a base and work your way back to your feet. But DDP had obviously really put in the repetition for that. So as soon as Adesanya went the base up, that's when DDP got the hooks in and took Adesanya's back and got the submission. I don't see Imavov doing that. I don't see Imavov being able to take down and hold Israel Adesanya down. I think Izzy will be the stronger out of the two, in my opinion. And like I said, this will be a kickboxing fight predominantly. And I think Adesanya just pieces him up for 5 rounds. I don't think it's going to be an amazing fight. I don't think we see a stoppage. I think we see Adesanya kind of just typically do what Adesanya does, and that is just outstrike his opponents with chopping at the low kicks, changing stances, setting up traps with that left hook as he leans back. I feel like this is going to be a pretty one-sided, typical Israel Adesanya performance. I don't think Imavov is going to look bad in there. I think Imavov will have a good showing of himself, but like I said, I feel like this is going to be a kickboxing matchup. Israel Adesanya is one of the best kickboxers we've ever seen in the UFC. I'm taking Israel Adesanya to win this by decision. And then we've got the co-main event. I don't know what that was there, but I just felt like it took over my body. I need a drink. MVP versus Shara Magomedov. Kind of a weird one, because MVP is a welterweight, but now he's moving up to middleweight. And they're trying to obviously make Shara Magomedov, climb up the rankings in the middleweight division. And this does nothing for him. But this is a really interesting matchup, and one I am glad we are seeing. This is going to be either one of the greatest fights of all time, or this is going to be one of the shittest fights of all time, and both guys need to be released immediately. one of the two, because this is going to be either two kickboxers that stand off at range with each other and try and technically point fight and not really throw much, or this is going to be just a striking masterpiece. I'm taking MVP to win this, to be honest. I don't think many people can hang with MVP on the feet. I really don't. I think he's so unorthodox in his blitzes, his bladed stance. I just feel like the guy striking is just a nightmare. He's hard to pin down. Shara Magomedov, I mean, we've seen him defensively grapple and he has looked shit, but we've seen that out of MVP as well, and he has also looked shit, but MVP obviously has been working on his grappling. We've seen him in that grappling matchup against Carlos Condit. Not that you can really take that much away from it, but these guys aren't the best grapplers defensively anyway. I don't think MVP is going to look to grapple with Shara Magomedov, so maybe Shara Magomedov is going to rip off his mask. It would be help if I could speak. Would help if I could speak. And maybe rip off his mask and show that he really is a Dagestani after all and just out-grapple MVP. I'm hoping that's not the case though. I don't think that will be the case. And also, with this being at middleweight, Shara Magomedov isn't that big for middleweight in my opinion anyway. I always found he looked pretty undersized, especially in terms of the strength. It looked like he was quite outmatched sometimes in my opinion anyway. The power advantage for me goes to the MVP. The striking advantage goes to the MVP. However, the weakness that MVP has and what you can do to stagger a style, we've seen Douglas Lima be able to do this, we've seen other fighters as well, is leg kicks. Now, Shara Bullet doesn't have the most powerful leg kicks, but he can throw them out fast and quick. And I feel like as MVP is bouncing back and forth, getting ready to make that blitz in, we could see Shara Magomedov kick him off balance and kind of throw off his rhythm. So that would be something to look out for. Maybe Shara Bullet can throw off MVP from his rhythm in there. But overall, like I said, I think MVP is one of the more dynamic strikers we've ever seen in MMA. I think he gives everybody on the feet problems, to be honest with you. I don't think Shara Bullet's going to be any different. I'm actually going to go for an MVP stoppage here. I think MVP stops him in the second round. And next up, just to cover quickly, UFC Fight Night London. I'm going to be trying to get tickets to this event. Let me know if you are in the comments below if you're UK based. Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg. This must mean one thing then. So if we're getting that matchup, then this must be another matchup we're going to be getting. And that is Khalil Rountree versus Dominic Reyes. Because I always thought Jan Blachowicz was going to be facing Khalil Rountree. I thought the UFC would have wanted to give Khalil Rountree a reward for his performance against Pereira, getting him in there with a former champion, but it looks like they're going the Carlos Ulberg route. Obviously, if Ulberg is able to beat Jan Blachowicz, he's in title contention, and that's a big storyline for him versus Alex Pereira, as obviously you've got the city kickboxing background with Carlos Ulberg and the ties to Adesanya and Pereira and Adesanya, etc. Obviously, Jan Blachowicz, let me just double check. I feel like this guy's 105 years of age. He's 41. Okay, he's 41 years of age, coming off surgery. Carlos Ulberg coming off that win over Volkan Oezdemir. Look, I think Carlos Ulberg is a good striker, but I feel like Jan Blachowicz is one of the more underrated fighters. And it's not as if this guy was really good young in his career. Like, Jan Blachowicz is kind of like a bottle of wine. The guy gets better with age. I mean, this guy won the belt, early 40s, late 30s, 39 maybe. And I think Jan Blachowicz can give Carlos Ulberg a lot of problems. We've seen Carlos Ulberg be chinned in the UFC before. Obviously, Carlos Ulberg himself does carry a lot of power. And sometimes Jan Blachowicz, when facing adversity, sometimes can kind of shell up and kind of just leave himself for the taking, if that makes sense, if I've described that well enough. But I feel like Jan Blachowicz, with the leg kicks, he's got some of the best leg kicks in the game. I feel like that leg kick, I feel like that 1-2 body kick, 1-2 lead body kick is going to be there for him against Carlos Ulberg. Although I can maybe see Carlos Ulberg maybe making the read and catching the kick at times. But I feel like the power of Jan Blachowicz, I feel like he is going to be able to dig those kicks into the body, in the legs. He can offensively wrestle, and I feel like he will use that to his advantage in there at times against Carlos Ulberg. Maybe not controlling him for large periods of time, but I feel like put Carlos Ulberg against the cage and make him work. And you know what? I think Jan Blachowicz chins Carlos Ulberg. That's my prediction. Jan Blachowicz chins Carlos Ulberg at UFC Fight Night London. And finally, this is a nice one here, we've got Tybura versus Mick Parkin. Looking forward to this one, to be honest. Mick Parkin, to see if he can climb the ranks in the UFC's heavyweight division. Obviously, a bit of a steel division he trains with. Tom Aspinall, obviously the best heavyweight in the UFC right now, and we know that Tom Aspinall has been in there against Tybura, and he's beaten Tybura with ease. So maybe Mick Parkin can replicate that. Who knows? But yeah, I think Mick Parkin is going to get the job done here, although Tybura is kind of the fraud check guy in the heavyweight division. So we will see how good Mick Parkin is in this matchup. But overall, some big matchup announced for these UFC Fight Night cards. Let me know who you think wins them in the comments below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you again in the next one.